I want to talk a little bit about one of my favorite topics today that I hit a lot, which is what I call mental toughness being the topic. If you've watched any of these videos, you've heard me refer to it a lot as, one of the most critical skills or abilities to have in terms of thinking better. So I wanted to elaborate on that a little bit and talk about it from maybe a little bit of a different angle. So I guess I'll give a hypothetical situation that I was recently talking to my brother about, and I'll build off of that to illustrate the point. So he was telling me about a movie that he watched recently. I forget the name of the movie, but there was a hiker or a mountain climber or something that was out by himself climbing, and he got stuck. His arm got stuck like on a mountain or something. And after a few hours or however long, he started to realize that he wasn't going to be able to get his arm free. And he was running short on water. I think the weather wasn't great, whatever. And it became somewhat clear to him at some point that he was going to die on that mountain if he didn't get his arm out. And all he had on him was a pocket knife. So you can kind of see where that's going. So I haven't seen the movie, but I think ultimately he cuts his arm off and he gets out. So we were talking about it, and the hypothetical was, what would you do in that situation? Would you cut your arm off? And the first reaction I think many of us would have, or at least we assume we'd have, is, oof, that's tough, right? A pocket knife, cutting my arm off. Forget like the practical application of it. Could I actually cut my arm off with a pocket knife? Let's assume you could. Would you actually be able to do it? Would you psychologically be able to get yourself to cut your arm off? And we were debating it, and the conversation was, for a lot of people that it might be no, like I don't know that I'd actually be able to do that. And I'll caveat this by saying, as I was having this conversation and trying to pose this hypothetical, I was sitting comfortably on my couch, drinking some water, eating some lunch, whatever, very, very comfortable. But in my mind, at least, it was very simple. It was, I'd have to cut my arm off. And that was it. So it's an interesting hypothetical to think about. But let me explain why I think it's so interesting. There's a few layers to it. I think one, it illustrates the beauty of logic and thinking better, or Adrogo thinking, as I often refer to it as, because it's mathematical, right? And you look at a situation like that, and you run the numbers in your head, figuratively, you look at the math of it, and it becomes very, very clear that you're going to die if you don't cut your arm off and get off this mountain. So as painful as that is, as bad as that is, you have to do it. And another important point there, right? People often think when I say kind of thinking logically or thinking better, that there's a coldness to it, that there's like a machine, computer-oriented nature to it. And that's not true, right? I often try and say that. The idea is you're trying to encompass all of it. You don't want to overweight the emotions and the feelings and all of that, but they are a factor. So in this situation, I would be the first to say in the hypothetical for me, like I would acknowledge this is going to be fucking miserable, and this is going to be terrible and scar me for life probably, and my life's going to be different forever, and it's going to be terribly hard for me to do. But the reality is the numbers are the numbers. They don't lie, and I'm going to have to do it. So that mathematical precision of it, that clarity, that almost certainty that comes with mathematics, and we never have complete certainty, but in this case, it's close to it. It makes it simple. The other interesting part of that is it speaks to mental toughness, because the way I would pose it is that's a really great hypothetical, because in theory, you would look at that situation and say, hey, that requires mental toughness to do that. And in a weird way, I would say it almost doesn't, because the logic is so strong, the math is so clear that it almost doesn't require any mental toughness, because it's not a question. There's not another option. You just have to do it. So the mental toughness almost gets removed, and it becomes just a math equation. 2 + 2 = 4. It is what it is. You move on, you cut your arm off, and you go from there. Not to say it's easy again, but you do it. So I think that's an interesting hypothetical, and it kind of sent us down a path of talking about that. And in a weird way, it pivoted back to mental toughness, because these things are very interrelated. This Adrogo thinking better and mental toughness are very interrelated. Because as my brother was asking me then, he was like, so you really wouldn't have any qualms about it? And again, I caveated and said, in the hypothetical, I don't think so. And I started referring to other kind of mental toughness challenges, which I've referred to on these videos before, that I do. Just little things that I try and test myself on. And I fail plenty of them. But when I get them right, there's a mindset that starts to come with it, right? Simple example, I'm doing this 75-day challenge, part of which is you have to stick to a strict diet, you can't eat any cheat meals, etc. I have a huge sweet tooth. I love candy. There's a huge bowl of candy in my house from Halloween. I can't eat it. I can't eat it for another 8 or 9 days. every day I keep that ball of candy out, so I'm forced to walk past it and see it and test myself. I'm forced to exercise and build that mental toughness muscle. And I've come in my mind to just accept it. Like, it's not a question. It's not a thought. It's 2 + 2 = 4. It's that same situation with the arm. The math is clear. I've said I'm not going to eat it for this much time. I'm just not going to eat it, right? I see the benefit of doing that, right? I want the mental toughness. So I can put myself in that same mindset when I think about being on the mountain, where it's like, I don't know, I've been in this situation where I have to do something I don't want to do, or something that's hard, and it sucks, but you do it. So I think there's an interesting piece of that. But the final piece I'll touch on is where we kind of went to in the conversation after that was, as you're trying to build that mental toughness, sure, putting the candy ball out, stopping yourself from eating something you want is good. That's an exercise. That's an exercise to build the muscle. There's a benefit to that. You're building mental toughness. But ideally, one of the things, one of the ways you want to make sure you incorporate into building mental toughness as well, is trying to get these kind of like win-win situations where you get the double benefit. Right? What do I mean by that? So you want a situation where you're testing yourself, doing something hard, building mental toughness, but doing it in an area or on a topic or in a situation where you actually want the result of that thing. The benefit of that thing is something you wanted anyway. Right? So in the candy example, it might be you want to lose weight, right? So that would be the double benefit. For me, it's not as important. So I'll give one last example for this. I've talked about this before as well. I love Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I love doing it, but I hate tournaments. I hate tournaments because I get nervous. I'm scared to lose. I'm scared to embarrass myself. I'm scared to get emasculated by somebody else in the match and have everybody see it, and my family see it, and my friends see it, and my coaches see it. So that's a good example of one of those double benefit win-win situations. I go do it because it forces me to use that mental toughness. It forces me to exert and apply that muscle of mental toughness and do something I don't want to do. But in doing it, I also get the result, which is I get better at jiu-jitsu, which is something I want anyway. It's something I want to build at and do more anyway. And it can be anything like that, right? Another example could be writing. If you've always wanted to write and you think there's a great benefit to it, and maybe you want to publish articles, or you want to write a book one day, so there's a benefit that's already there to doing that activity, but it's hard and it takes work and you have to find the time. Well, that's a perfect one, right? That's a way to apply that muscle. So you force yourself, you build the mental toughness to say, I'm going to do it, I'm going to write. And then when you do it, not only do you build the mental toughness and get that benefit, you get the benefit that now you've written something and you're actually working towards that goal. So I think, when you think about building mental toughness, part of the importance of it is you want to have that mindset that you can refer back to in tough situations, right? God forbid you ever have to cut your arm off on a mountain to be able to think, I know what it means to do things I don't want to do. I have that muscle, right? And you build that through those instances where you just literally build mental toughness. You don't eat the candy. But ideally, to really sustain it and build it in the long run, you want those double benefit situations where you're building the mental toughness and you're doing it in an activity in which you wanted that benefit anyway. And that's really an ideal way to go after it. So I thought that was a good kind of summary of how I view the benefits of mental toughness and how it's intertwined with thinking better.